Even for Soulsborne veterans, Sekiro requires learning a few new skills and adjusting the way you're used to playing FromSoftware games. But fear not, we've got your back, oh honorable gamers. These expert tips will have you slicing and dicing like a master shinobi in no time. Not only is Sekiro a very different game in terms of design and aesthetic from the Soulsborne games, the collective label gamers have given to the Dark Souls franchise and Bloodborne, but strategies and tactics that were crucial in those games will actively get you killed now. Waiting for enemies to make a move? Don't wait too long unless you want all that hard work building up posture damage to disappear. Holding back because you're worried about stamina? Forget that, wail away on those creeps. Breathlessly deciding to take on that last enemy in an area before healing up? Why? You can pause now, breathe, heal up, strategize before going in. You're still going to need a bottomless well of patience in Sekiro, and having a strong grasp on when and how to heal to get the most out of your arsenal is important. But approaching Sekiro as if it was a Souls game is actually a really poor idea this time around.
What's the matter, Stray? Nothing left to lose? Well, would you look at that?
On the flip side, however, some things about the Souls games have changed to your benefit. You might approach the first major drop in Sekiro with tons of caution, and maybe the same kind of fear that comes with jumping off a high building without a parachute. Before you start looking for equipment to strip off while visions of the medulla dance in your head, fear not. Fall damage is mostly a thing of the past. Now we say mostly because falling from a high enough place can count as falling into a bottomless pit basically. But even then, you'll just return to your ledge with a chunk of your health taken off. It's not the end of the world, but health is still precious here. For the most part though, if you see an item or an enemy 50 feet down, you can jump down without a care in the world. One of the few Souls principles that still remains true in Sekiro is that it's always better to face one enemy than many. And even with the ability to parry and deflect, even just two enemies can get overwhelming quickly. More often than not though, you'll find yourself in kill zones with 5 or more enemies who need to be cleared out before you can take on something a lot bigger roaming around. As such, stealth is definitely a mechanic you'll need to rely on in Sekiro. But this isn't Assassin's Creed. The consequences of getting spotted can be harsh. The smartest way to deal with so many fights here is to thin the herd before the main event. Aside from the snitch class enemies who will alert the entire area to your presence, getting an enemy's attention with shurikens will usually just draw the enemy closer to you so you can take them down one-on-one instead of say 10-on-1. Their buddies typically won't notice, and it will save you a major headache. Sen, Sekiro's main currency, is cut in half upon death, with no way to get it back. But while skill points are essentially banked once you've earned one, it doesn't go away when you die. What options do you have for your financial future? Friends, please consider the coin purse. See, you'll pick up the occasional coin purse out in the wild, and if you so desire, can cash it out right there and then for actual usable Sen. It's kind of like how small, big, and boss souls worked in previous FromSoftware games. But you'll notice that there are merchants who will actually sell them for whatever the purse will hold, plus 10%. Feels vaguely like a ripoff, until you make the crucial realization that while Sen is cut in half when you die, items aren't, and the purses count as an item, not money. Of course, the purses aren't an unlimited resource, so you'll only want to buy them when you've got a lot of Sen burning a hole in your pocket, and a tough area ahead. But despite the upfront price tag, the purses are definitely a sound investment. Nobody has made gamers fear and respect death like FromSoftware. And while that's still true in Sekiro, things work a little differently now that you have the ability to resurrect yourself. For starters, one thing that's important to remember is that there's no temporary invincibility period when you respawn. If you got killed by a boss at the start of a 5-hit combo, and you res on hit number 3, you're dead again. And the cooldown time for resurrection means you're not coming back. What you want to do is handle it like Neo in the Matrix. Let your enemies think you're dead, and after a few seconds, they'll aimlessly wander off. Resurrect when their backs are turned so you can either move in for a backstab or have enough breathing room to make a getaway and regroup. Either way, it's worth taking that extra minute to consider your options before spamming the res button. But what about those situations where it's hopeless? What if you wandered into a nest of a half dozen enemies and death is certain? Well, just like real life, it's not a bad idea to have a plan. And in Sekiro's case, there are a few things to consider. The biggest thing to remember is not to be afraid of it. The game will make a big deal early on about death having consequences, and yes, it absolutely does. Dying enough times will infect specific NPCs out in the world with dragon rot, a particularly nasty wasting disease.
Dragon rot. The stagnation overflows and spreads, a disease that leads eventually to death.
But you know, it's a FromSoftware game. Death is inevitable, and it's designed to happen a lot. Best course of action? Ignore it. At least at the beginning. Before you find out about the dragon rot cure from Emma at the dilapidated temple, there's not a whole lot you can do. Honestly, the worst thing that can happen is lowering your chances of unseen aid, which allows you to hold on to your money and XP after death. You'll get chances to make the cure later, which will allow you to start up and continue NPC side quests. But cure droplets are limited, meaning you'll need to be stingy with them anyway. Cross that bridge when you come to it. Until then, the consequences of dying your best death don't outweigh the benefits of persistence. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more SVG videos about your favorite video games are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.